Okay, in this video, we are going to do a little religious psychological profiling. I had an experience where somebody actually gave me some great material because the way that they commented and reviewed something actually proved exactly what I was saying in a course that I did called Theology and Spirituality. Okay, so in this video, we're going to do a few things. So first of all, this video is going to be all about religious psychological profiling, and we are going to use a very juicy review that I got. We're going to unpack what this person was doing and why they were doing it. Here's the breakdown of this video. You're going to get a disclaimer from me in just a minute. You're going to get an opening wisdom statement from me with things I want you to know and think about. We're going to get into some profiling definitions. I'm going to read the review so you can get the full benefit of the juiciness. But while we do it, now that you know the definitions of things, I want you to listen for what's actually happening in this review. And at the end of all of that, I'm going to break down some considerations profiling the reviewer. Okay, so with that being said, boom, let's get right into it. Disclaimer 1, I'm not religious. Disclaimer 2, I believe in God. Disclaimer 3, I studied theology. Disclaimer number 4, I believe in inclusivity. And disclaimer number 5, I never exile other people, even the person that left me this review. Now let's get into some opening wisdom that I want you to know. First thing I want you to know is you never argue with a belief system. Why don't you argue with a belief system? Because they believe it. And if someone believes something wholeheartedly, they're going to hang on to that. They're going to grip onto that. So my first thing that I'd say to you is don't argue with people. Don't try and convince people. If someone is open to having an intelligent, rational, and not a mean-spirited conversation, then engage those conversations and maybe you guys can learn to speak each other's language. But a lot of times people don't want to hear all of that. So don't try and force your message and don't try and get them to change their beliefs, because people change their beliefs when they're ready to. The next thing I want to tell you is people show themselves for who they are. Let's talk about the fruits of the Spirit, shall we? Galatians 5:22. On the other hand, the fruitage of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faith, mildness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. And I'm just going to skip down to 5:25 because I like that one too. Is if we are living by Spirit, let us go on walking orderly also by Spirit. Let us not become egotistical, stirring up competition with one another, envying one another. Okay, fruit of the Spirit, people. Now, I think I need to read another part of Galatians because I think it needs to be a full disclosure. And this is something that I talk about in my theology class, and I'm not going to get into details, but there are a few things in this other part that people use all the time against spiritual people like me and other people who are not religious, but they believe in God. And I won't get into all those details because it's in my course, and I'll leave that link below. If you want to figure out if you want to understand that a little bit more, you can go to that course to get a free 10 minutes. However, there are some things in Galatians before that that speak of the things that are works of the flesh that you should not be doing. And it's very interesting when we apply that to how we are and interact with other people, because there's a few things that have to do with who we are as people, how we interact with other people, not so much of things that we do like services and that sort of thing. Okay, so you'll understand when I say this. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you because there's always another argument. There's a reason why people are attacking you for certain things, but you have to take everything into a context, and I'm not going to get into all the context here because it is just, there's a lot of context, but I am going to leave the link to my course that really goes in depth to all of this stuff and shows you how to find all these things in the Bible. But I want to read this for full disclosure, but also to pick up some of the things that we are supposed to do as human beings and how we treat other people. Galatians 19-21 says, "Now the works of the flesh are manifest, and they are fornication, uncleanliness," back up, fornication. We all do that anyway. Okay, uncleanliness, loose conduct, idolatry, practice of spiritism. I get really deep into that because you have to have context with this. A lot of people have been judged that they can't practice the things that they are drawn to practicing, and it's just not, excuse you. That's a longer story, and I can't get into that because I'm going to get way off track. The point that I wanted to bring up to you that I think is really interesting is it says enmities, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, contentions, divisions, sects, envies, drunken bouts, revelries. And I looked up revelries, which is basically partying, and everyone could just say goodbye to their weekends, right? Because revelry is like being festive and engaging and drinking alcohol and getting buzzed and having fun. That's a revelry, and pretty much everybody has abandoned that. We all had our day. Some of us don't do that anymore, but we all did it. And so the Bible says you're not supposed to do that. Those are works of the flesh, but everybody still does it. Now, I just love it when all these things come together, because we could just read through those things and not really understand what some of these words are, because some of these things we don't really pay attention to or we don't have in our daily vocabulary. And the word in there that really, again, for real, the word that stood out to me was the word enmity. And what is enmity? Not enmity, but enmity. What does enmity mean? Aha! Enmity is the state or feeling of being actively opposed or hostile to someone else or something. Just think about reviewers, or comments in sections and chats on YouTube. You've seen people who are doing this and they were actually cruel and mean-spirited, right? That is considered enmity, and that is the very works of the flesh, the thing that you are not supposed to do. We're supposed to be reasonable and loving and kind, despite the fact that we disagree on certain things. The final opening wisdom that I want to give you is Matthew 7:16, which says, "By their deeds you will know them." So I want you to keep that in mind as we go through all of this and I read the review, because I want you to pick apart everything that's happening and apply all of these things to the biblical meaning of these scriptures and what it means to how we're supposed to behave to one another, and when we go astray from that, but we use God as our biblical sword to hurt other people and slice them apart. Now let's get into some interesting profiling.